He was publicly humiliated in the store, accused of provocation, and thrown out simply for wearing a red MAGA hat he wore with pride. No one suspected that this quiet shopper was not just a random customer, but the very person funding the ideals of community and inclusivity on which the store was built. When the truth came to light, the consequences were devastating for those who thought they had the right to judge. But to understand how it all unfolded, let's go back to the beginning. The small local store was a haven of warmth and community, nestled on a lively street corner in downtown Portland. The shop boasted wide windows adorned with cheerful posters promoting eco-friendly initiatives and vibrant potted plants lining the entrance. Inside, soft instrumental music floated in the air, harmonizing with the gentle hum of chatter from Saturday's bustling shoppers. Shelves overflowed with organic produce, artisan breads, and handcrafted goods. The overhead lights cast a soft golden glow, making the scene inviting and lively. Tom Bennett, a man in his late 50s, strolled through the aisles, his stature average but confident. He wore a simple navy blue jacket, khaki slacks, and his unmistakable red MAGA hat perched on a head of silver hair. His warm brown eyes scanned the shelves as he placed a few items, a loaf of sourdough, a jar of honey, into his basket. His demeanor was calm, almost contemplative, as though savoring the simple joy of grocery shopping. Not far away, a woman in her early 30s caught sight of Tom. Sarah Peterson was petite, with shoulder-length auburn hair and piercing green eyes. She wore a bohemian dress with bold floral patterns and dangly earrings. Her expression shifted quickly from neutral to visibly annoyed as she spotted the red hat. She stood frozen for a moment, her lips pursed, before marching toward him. "Excuse me," Sarah said sharply, her voice cutting through the ambient noise. Other shoppers nearby paused to glance in their direction. "Do you think it's appropriate to wear that here?" Tom, startled but polite, turned to her. "I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you mean." "That hat," she said, pointing emphatically. "It's offensive. You're making a statement that has no place in this community." Tom raised his eyebrows but remained composed. "I'm just here to shop," he replied evenly. "I'm not trying to make a statement." Sarah's voice grew louder. "You're provoking people. That's exactly what this hat does. It stands for division, for hate." A small crowd began to form, curious and uneasy. Tom glanced around, noticing the growing tension. He took a deep breath, his expression remaining calm. "I'm sorry if you feel that way," he said gently, "but it's just a hat." The store's manager, Jason Carter, stepped into the scene. Jason, a tall man in his late 40s, with a neatly trimmed beard and a plaid button-up shirt, had a friendly but firm presence. His brown eyes darted between Tom and Sarah as he approached. "What seems to be the problem here?" Jason asked, his tone calm but authoritative. Sarah immediately turned to him, her voice filled with indignation. "This man is wearing a MAGA hat in our store. It's offensive, and it's making people uncomfortable." Jason's eyes settled on Tom. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave," he said, his tone measured but firm. Tom frowned slightly but remained composed. "Leave? For what reason?" Jason hesitated, glancing at Sarah, who crossed her arms triumphantly. "We strive to maintain a welcoming environment for everyone," Jason said. "And your hat is causing a disturbance." Tom's voice was calm but resolute. "I've done nothing but shop quietly," he said. "If someone is offended by my presence, that's their choice, not mine." The tension in the air was palpable. Sarah's expression hardened as she spoke again. "People like you think you can just waltz in anywhere and shove your beliefs down our throats. Well, not here." Jason, emboldened by Sarah's outburst and the murmurs of agreement from onlookers, made his decision. "Sir, I'm asking you one last time to leave. Otherwise, I'll have to call security." Tom looked at Jason steadily, his gaze unwavering. For a moment, it seemed as though he might argue, but instead, he set down his basket with a quiet dignity. "Very well," he said, his voice calm. "Have a good day." He turned and walked out, the small crowd parting awkwardly to let him pass. Sarah watched him leave with a self-satisfied smirk, while Jason exhaled, relieved that the situation hadn't escalated further. The following morning, Jason received an urgent call from the store's corporate office. He arrived at the sleek headquarters, a mix of glass and steel, feeling slightly apprehensive. As he entered the boardroom, his eyes widened in surprise. Seated at the head of the table was none other than Tom Bennett, now dressed in a tailored gray suit. His red MAGA hat was nowhere in sight, but his calm demeanor was unmistakable. "Good morning, Jason," Tom said, his voice steady but tinged with authority. "Please have a seat." Jason sank into a chair, his palms sweating. The other executives in the room exchanged knowing glances but remained silent. Tom continued, his tone firm but measured. "I understand there was an incident yesterday involving a customer who was asked to leave the store. That customer was me." Jason's face turned pale. "Mr. Bennett, I didn't realize." "Clearly," Tom interrupted. "Jason, I've been a silent partner in this business for years, funding initiatives that align with our shared values: community, respect, and inclusion. What happened yesterday was the opposite of those values." Jason opened his mouth to respond, but Tom raised a hand. "No, let me finish. Your actions didn't just alienate me, they set a precedent for how we treat others who might not share the majority's views. That's unacceptable." Jason swallowed hard. His head bowed. I made a mistake," he admitted. Tom's expression softened slightly. "We all make mistakes," he said. "But accountability is key. Effective immediately, I'm relieving you of your position. We need leadership that truly understands and upholds our values." Jason nodded silently, the weight of the moment sinking in. Later that week, Tom held a press conference outside the store. A podium was set up against the backdrop of the cheerful storefront, now adorned with a banner that read, "Community, Respect, Inclusion." A crowd had gathered, including reporters, curious onlookers, and store employees. Tom stood confidently at the podium, his silver hair gleaming in the afternoon sun. He wore a simple navy blazer and an American flag lapel pin. His voice carried warmth and conviction as he addressed the crowd. "Yesterday's events were a wake-up call," he began. "This store has always been a place where everyone should feel welcome, regardless of their beliefs. That's why I've supported it for so long. But we can't claim to uphold those values if we allow personal biases to dictate how we treat others." The crowd murmured in agreement. Sarah, standing at the edge of the group, looked visibly uncomfortable but remained silent. Tom's gaze swept the crowd. "We're implementing new policies and training to ensure this never happens again. And I'm inviting everyone to hold us accountable. This is your store as much as it is mine." As he stepped away from the podium, the crowd erupted into applause. Several people approached him, shaking his hand and thanking him for his leadership. Sarah lingered for a moment before approaching. Her eyes were downcast and her voice was barely audible. I'm sorry for what I said," she stammered. "I didn't know." Tom's smile was kind but measured. "Apology accepted," he said. "But let's make sure we learn from this." As he walked away, the store's doors opened to welcome a new wave of customers, a fresh start for a community that had learned a valuable lesson.